You're not that old yet.
I hope I'm I'm hoping it's part of my history in about.
Did you get handed it? Did you see the diplomas yet? There's just like 3 or 4 left in there that you can easily design.
Okay, I will. We start the public portion with the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so apologies, Kim, for that.
That's okay.
We're going to, because we actually just accept them, so we're going to accept them, and then if there are any questions, we'll run after and
Session.
Okay.
does that work? Cool. Okay, so is there a motion to approve / accept the
I'll make the
CSD?
motion.
Thanks, Mike.
I read them all.
Thanks, Ray.
Yeah, so did I.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Then minutes from our regular meeting, February 17th. Any questions, comments, concerns from these? Editorial or grammatical?
No.
Okay.
We have an excellent person who does that.
Is there a motion to approve them? Can I get a thanks, Brent? Thanks. All those in favor?
I will abstain
Okay,
since I wasn't here.
okay. And treasurer's report, Sydney, you are up.
Okay, so I have a lot in my report. I'm not gonna read it to you all. I'm just gonna hit the highlights, but ask me if there's anything that you want me to go into more detail on. So this is like a very big month for grants, more grants. So I had one of my ARP, which is American Rescue Plan, one of my ARP grants, which was our 90% ESSER base allocation grant, and that's $1,429,000. That had been kicked back to me, and I had to go through, change a couple of things and tweak that and then resubmit it. I was really happy. At this point, the state is super responsive on getting right back, like, we want you to make this adjustment. Like, literally I was submitting applications and same day getting feedback so that I was able to get these approved really quickly. And I have to say thank you to Brent for helping me write the grants, because there's a piece of this on the evidence-based interventions that is just out of my wheelhouse, and these are, it's just that the applications are very complex, and I really appreciate that. So anyway, just going through these grants, so we have the ARP ESSER 90% allocation at $1.4 million. That is approved. We're using that grant to fund our elementary enrichment program and the setup and the teachers for 1 year, as well as one social studies, Spanish, and science teacher, each of those teachers for 3 years. We're also funding 0.8 of an FTE of one social worker and 3 full-time custodians for 3 years. And we are putting the overage on our pre-K, which, if you guys remember, we didn't quite have enough students registered this year to cover all of our pre-K costs. So that overage is going to be covered by this grant, which is great. I mean, that's what it's meant for. And we're covering COVID sanitation supplies, new furniture for the high school and elementary computer labs and library furniture. And we have the setup of the new 611 room in the elementary. And then 3 other grants, which these are the 1% state reserves. These grants, we have the summer learning and enrichment, the comprehensive after school, and it's in addressing the impact of lost instructional time, which basically we've been just calling that learning loss as a quick reference. So our summer learning and enrichment, the plan is just to fund our summer school program with that. That's $208,000. The comprehensive after school, this is really just outside of school hours, so we have a plan for some before and after tutoring that'll go through there. Again, $208,000. And then the learning loss grant is $1,041,000. So this again has to be used to fund, like all of this has to be used to fund evidence-based interventions. So we're using that grant to fund 1 elementary AIS math teacher, 2 elementary ELA instructional specialists, 1 high school math teacher, and a 0.5 FTE of 2 administrators. All of that for 3 years. So, and we're funding a teacher professional development in responsive classroom techniques. And we also have hours for an additional school psychologist going through that grant. It's a lot of really great stuff that is being funded by these grants. We were encouraged to write one-time use things into the grant, and there are a lot of one-time use things. We've got like the setting up the 611 room, setting up enrichment, but then there are things on there that are recurring expenses, full-time positions. So when we talk about in the budget, we're planning for those people to come back in 2 years. So we're going to make room halfway this year for those to come back to the general fund, and then the remaining half in 23-24, so that those people can come back to the general fund seamlessly and we don't have loss of jobs or program. So it's very important in this budget process to just be thinking about that in the long term. I just wanted to give you guys a quick rundown. I'm not going to really go into detail, but I'm shopping around our insurances and taking a look at that, which is always a great thing to do periodically, just to kind of make sure we're getting the best deal on things. And, we're still, I don't want to see any loss of coverages or, any diminishment in there, but if we can find some savings, that's always a really good thing to do periodically. So I'm looking at that. Do you guys remember when I mentioned our 3+1 analyst relationship?
About it.
I am too. I really, it feels like it's such a great time because we have cash right now and interest rates have not been impressive for a while. So interest rates are kind of starting to see some movement. We just saw the Fed raise interest rates, which I was mentioning earlier, 0.25% yesterday. So that's going to continue, I think, in order to control inflation. So I mean, that is sad because we'll see, mortgage rates are going up, but it also means finally that bank interest is coming up. So there's some things that we can do here. And our 3+1 analyst was recommending that I set up a relationship with KeyBank so that we can buy U.S. Treasuries, which just due to uncertainty with the economy because of everything going on with Russia and Ukraine, Treasuries are very valuable right now. And it's a great way to earn a little bit more on our money without a lot of impact to us, because I can literally put that money in, and if something comes up, I can sell them early. And so we wouldn't see any loss of our principal balances that are invested, but we would see a bigger return than if it's just sitting in the bank. So I'm really excited about that. I think we're buying some treasuries tomorrow. We're like, well, this will be a neat experience. So I like having our analysts help and
Maybe a better return than a CD.
Yes, right now CD rates aren't really good unless you can look out further into the future. I don't generally like to tie up large amounts of money for more than 90 days, just because as we get into May and June, that's where our big payments go out the door. We have our BOCES bill and we have our balloon pay to the teachers. So that's several $1 million. So right now, here we are in March, I can have things, we were talking about doing a treasury that would mature on June 9th. So I'll have money and time to make those payments and also bring in some extra money, and it's nice. And we're looking at, I think, a much better cash flow for our summer. This year, last year we had some trouble just with the timing of cash flows, and we had to do the revenue anticipation note, the RAM. I don't believe we're going to need to do that this year. Things are looking very positive. We have building aid coming in the way that it should be coming in now, and it's nice. It gives me just relief to have that where it should be, And it's even more exciting to then try these new ways to bring in money for the school and make our money work for us in ways that are not at all a risk for the district. And I had already talked about with the budget, just thinking out into the future and making sure that we're continuing to consider as we go through 22, 23, and 23, 24, that we're making room for those people who are on the grants to come back to the job. So, that's where I'm at with everything, and if there's anything that you want me to kind of go into more deeply, just let me know. And I will have the grant applications, it's a requirement of the grants, that those applications will be put out on our website, so that's gonna be going up soon. I'm working with Matt on that. Thank you.
Question on the workers' comp. That's not a self-funded, that's right, or,
No, we're in a consortium.
okay. So it's fully funded, or fully insured workers' comp option. Or-
It's like they buying a policy, they paying premiums instead of paying through the consortium. So as long as you can maintain the same coverage, but there may be some savings there to look at.
Thanks. And then appropriation transfers. Any questions on anything in there? Is there a motion to approve? Thanks, Greg.
I'll second.
Thanks, Brent. All those in favor?
Right.
Aye. Any opposed? And warrants. General fund A 44 is the first one. On page 2, Highland, is that the building condition survey? Yes. Cool.
Interesting to see the electricity versus natural gas. Electricity being involved, that's good.
Yeah, just
New
wanted
routes,
to add that, the cost for the building condition survey is also fully reviewable. So I want to just,
It all comes back. It didn't seem outrageous to people.
The New Routes Charter, is that for one, two students, one less student? Great. Three months or students?
the students.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, was your question how many
New
months?
routes.
No, it was either how many months or how many students. I knew it was more than one.
It's two, they bill, 6 times a year, 2 months increments.
Thank you.
All right, next one is federal funds, number 22. Is that side by side an annual fee, or did we sort of buy it in a couple of chunks? Page 19.
It was purchased side by side as our full
You're
3-6
reading.
ELA.
Here we go.
I'm not sure how it's-
So we bought that for the Katie, I'm sorry, count. Okay.
Oh, 19.
It's the first of the federal funds.
The first one. Oh, side by side for the future. Okay, this was bought for, this was everybody but pre-K? Was this?
It's our 3-6 ELA curriculum.
And
I'm
it was-
not sure
it's
how you
one
spread
time, it's
out
done.
the-
Okay, because I
Yeah.
thought we started it in the fall, so I didn't know if it was like, if this was an annual fee, that was scary. But
No.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how it's purchased, how it's paid for.
We paid for that, that hit, our CURSA grant money, and it's all one shot deal, paid and done.
And then school lunch fund number 23. Is there a motion to accept?
I'll make a
all
motion.
those? Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Josh. All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Recognition of visitors. Hi, Mrs. Loomis.
Oh,
We have no considerations. We have the consent agenda, which there was a couple of additions. So are there any things on the consent agenda that anybody wants pulled out for consideration? Hearing none. Are there any questions on any specific items?
The paper bid, we had one bid. Was this the same as last year?
No, we had that W Mason last year, we didn't bid this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we didn't have
I
a whole
sent
lot
out
of
the paperwork,
choice,
but they didn't slip anything, so.
but you got a sample and
Mhm.
machines handle it.
Yeah.
Thank you to Board Warner. How did that, are they doing that with a bunch of local schools? Or how did that, all those books?
I don't think so. It's Erin Price, who's
Okay.
Blakely's mom.
Yeah.
Who's a first grader. She works for Board Warner. She does the boots for Board as well. And to be honest, I don't know if they do it for other schools. I don't
They
know.
don't. Erin does it for this community.
that's good.
Yeah, the book donation. I'm going to talk about that a little bit in the report and how we use some of those texts.
Is that kind of like a benefit company for employees who can apply for it? Because IBM had a program like that for a long time.
So
And I used that a couple of times.
yeah, it's something, she's in HR, and so I think she just has organized it, right?
I know the boots for Board. That is something that they do in
Universal.
other communities. But
She's
the text, I don't.
Maybe, and maybe she's just the contact here for Kim, so I don't know.
Either way, it's tremendous.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
She's 100% not watching, but
I'll tell her.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I moved.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks, Kate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right, we are to internet. Mr. Wayne.
Well, I'd like to start on the first item by thanking Pete and Beth Gansbergler for their leadership in this item. But we taking the midterm exam. During the midterm exam week, we had our 7th and 8th grade students take the iReady assessment, kind of gauge where they're at, their understanding of ELA and math. And from that data, Beth and Pete had a meeting with both the 7th grade team and the 8th grade team, and kind of looked through the list of students, the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 students, and identify what level of support they needed and come up with some intervention plans. So we are in the midst of getting those intervention plans in place, and just helping our kids fill those gaps that were developed during the pandemic. So again, Pete did a great job and Beth did a great job. I just sat in as a cheerleader, but it was fantastic. The interventions I think they're going to be very beneficial for our students, and I want to thank our teachers as well for taking that on and taking advantage of this opportunity. So thank you, Pete. All right, and as far as the ag program is concerned, tomorrow's our superintendent's conference day. Cornell Cooperative Extension is going to be hosting an open house up there for us in the afternoon. They're going to take faculty and staff around for tours at noon, 1 o'clock, and 2 o'clock. You're welcome to show up as well if you're free. Stop up there take part in the tour. But I think it's going to be a great opportunity for our teachers to get to see what's available to them up there, whether it's to support a class or a field trip or whatever they want to utilize it for. Brett and I are planning at that time having a conversation with T. Hansen a little bit about the facility and how we get the facility prepared for our classes next year. So, and just my last item is the school musical this weekend. If you have any time Saturday night or matinee time during Sunday, go and see if they do a great job. Oh yeah,
Have you seen the rehearsals at all, or did they let you?
no, I have not. I've been forbidden to see the rehearsals.
Oh.
My daughter's in it,
I
so
know.
I cannot.
I was-
Yeah, so I'll be as surprised as you are.
And before we start, actually, I gotta excuse myself.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I gotta run to another meeting.
Just rolling through the agenda.
Good work,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks, Wayne. Katie.
Okay, so the first thing I wrote about in my report was student retention. It's that time of year where we are looking at student progress and factoring in, all of the different pieces, but thinking about whether or not certain students should or would benefit from retention another year in the current grade level. And we typically have another committee where we run those conversations through. And because our RTI team and process continues to strengthen, we've decided to combine and not have that separate committee, but run everything through the RTI team. And it just, again, that process is strong, and we look at all the data we need to look at to best support the students. And retention is a big decision for a child, and making sure that we're only retaining students if they will absolutely benefit from it, and it will make the difference moving on. Making sure that we're not mistaking another year of first grade, to be beneficial for a child who may actually have a learning delay. Those are important pieces to consider. So again, we're going to use our RTI process and that committee to have those conversations. This is where I talked about the books donated from Borg Warner and Aaron Price. Definitely coordinated that effort along with Wendy Brudemasso, who's our librarian. What we did was, Wendy did, she coordinated the the selection of those books with Aaron, and they selected just beautiful texts that were all diverse. And again, they were carefully selected, just beautiful texts. The committee came together, and Sarah's a part of this too, took the texts, read through them, and created talking points for the teachers. So if I was a second grade teacher, I received a set of books ready to go with talking points for read alouds in my classroom. And it went really well. I think it was very well received. The kids had those books in their classroom library, could bring them home to share with their families, and kind of loan them through the classroom library. And yeah, just a huge thank you. It is part of the Read Across America event, but again, we decided to have the focus of the text be diversity. And then we also celebrated, we are still and currently celebrating Women's History Month. And Black History Month was already celebrated, but we're doing, our fourth grade team has written quotes for the announcements, and it's been really nice to see the activities that specific classrooms have celebrated with as well. And that's it. Any questions?
I wanted to comment. I saw the Rosa Revere engineer and a bunch from that series, and you introduced us to those, so thank you.
You're welcome.
And then with the student retention, I wonder, is this like a reckoning year? Because, during the pandemic, I think you didn't retain anyone for maybe both or maybe one of the years. Is there some sort of catch-up retention? I'm just curious how the numbers would compare to pre-pandemic.
Right, so I did go back all the way to 11-12 and look at our retention data. It has decreased significantly with some of the things that Kim did when she was principal, in terms of looking carefully at when retention is really going to make the difference. But yes, in some ways, but through the RTI committee. So an example would be one kiddo that came, a first grader, to the committee. He was a remote learner all of last year, never came back to us in April like the majority of kids did. And we could absolutely attribute his gaps to learning loss. So contacted Brent and said, can we tutor this individual student before school? Because within the given school day, we're just going to create more gaps if we're pulling him from anything else. We're not going to plunk him into a kindergarten classroom. It's not the right thing to do. So to answer your question, yes, in a lot of ways, it is that type of year where we're looking at we did retain a handful of kids, 2 kids, I believe, last year. And retention's tough. It's one of those things that you just never really stop thinking about it, even after you make the decision. Was it the right decision? And that's why it's important to go back and look at the data. Did this kid end up being classified with a learning disability? We thought retention was going to make the difference. It's a tough decision. But to answer your question, yes, it is all coming to a head. It seems to be. Kids have been in school for months now with consistent instruction. And if they're not where they need to be, is retention the answer? Or is there something more we can do within our reach of tutoring or intensifying the interventions during the intervention block?
I just share there's a data connection, clear data connection to dropout rates and retention.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if a student's retained once, goes up to 15-20% higher chance of dropping out. Retain them twice, they're going to drop out. It's going to be 70%. So.
I think the original question, we kind of went to, are we going to see a spike this year because we didn't retain as much? And I think the answer is going to be no, because we're looking at, or they're looking at all these other avenues that we can help a child make big ones. If they needed special services, supports, put those in place instead of retention, so a child can continue to grow and get years go throughout the year. Or if a child has significant learning loss, instead of retaining them, I think you giving them another year, even though it's going to be older, if their shoe would help give them, find a way to get them tutoring or other supports that will help you close that gap.
I know that,
Don't think there'll be a spike.
No, that makes sense.
yeah, I remember when you and Katie were telling us about retention. It was a really tough thing. A few years back, that we really want to avoid the consequences.
I know Katie did a great job. That Kim did too. Just only like you said, it's going to benefit the student clearly. Other than that, try to find some other intervention.
I like your summer program idea. You're moving forward. It's not like you're going to go back and review it. There's other things. And now you're moving forward, getting them ready for this. It's very wise.
What has been and I don't remember if it was in the report later, what was the response to the summer program so far? To whoever.
Numbers.
Yeah,
We
numbers.
have 86 students, one from Spencer, on our survey that want to join the summer
What's
school. So there were 7 in grades 9 and 10, current grades 9 and 10, it will be the 9, 10, 11, 12, 9, 10, 11, 12 sort of block. So 7, and then middle school is about 12 currently.
Did you want elementary? What's that? 86 minus that, right?
It's about.
But I mean, clearly the high school kids are not as interested.
Right.
But my teachers, I talked to my department chairs today. They're going to talk to their departments and really try to get an idea of what students really need that level of extra support and intervention. And they're going to be talking to students directly and contacting parents as well to really encourage them to participate in summer school. So hopefully, over time, we can get some more interest there.
It's creating one Spencer student.
Well, they haven't promoted it yet, and it may be somebody that knows somebody here, and they're like, "Oh, sign up for."
Okay.
So that's where we're thinking.
That makes Pete.
So the first item there is the professional development. I attended
through nicer, and it focused on the words and the actions that coaches have on their teams and their kids and what impact it has on the kids. So it was a great, quick little professional development for myself. Because it was during the day, coaches weren't able to attend, which is why I attached that second piece there of what I created for the coaches to share with them. There just wasn't enough coverage to get coaches there throughout the day. So it was a great opportunity for me to share some insightful information, and it was important information because of the size of our school and how many students take part in extracurriculars and sports. And how the coaches treat those kids has that ripple effect, as the title suggests, on your classroom environment, your school environment, district environment. So it was a great opportunity for me to sit through and share with the coaches. So the second piece, the winter wrap up there, all of our sports seasons for the winter are completed. We're now into our spring season, which started Monday, March 14th. We're starting to look at some decisions that we have to make in the next day or so. We started talking with coaches of baseball today. Right now, we have a significant number of students signed up for JV baseball. So we've talked to the coaches about the freshmen who were on JV baseball, of students, the freshmen who were not going to get much playing time at the JV level. The coaches talked to those students about going down to modified, where they would be getting more innings. So we'll finalize those details tomorrow after we talk a little bit more to the coaches. And then softball, unfortunately, looks like we're going to have to cut our JV program because we only had 9 sign up. That's with 200 underclassmen, 8th graders. So the 8th graders will go down to modified along with a 9th grader or 2. And then the other girls are going to head up to varsity. So that still leaves us with lower numbers for varsity, but still gives us a team. Unfortunately, not being able to merge softball impacted having age-appropriate teams, which is our philosophy going into merging programs. So it's unfortunate, but we'll provide those girls the best opportunity we can. And then the last piece there, Wayne touched on it a little bit. I'm looking forward to working more instructional-wise in both buildings. I appreciate that opportunity to do that from the board and in the consent agenda for approving that tonight. So, thank you. And that's it.
Kim, in your special ed pack.
Yeah, so I'm guessing it wasn't just my packet, but the special ed report's not in.
Did it?
Yeah, but that's okay. Basically what I had put in the special ed report was just the transitions, waiting to have a secretary in place. I think a little tongue in cheek, I said Jan Thomas would be proud of me, maybe. I said my learning curve was steeper as secretary than it is as director of special ed. And we're right in the midst of the spring annuals. So that was what I had put in the report. So I apologize that it wasn't there. Curriculum, and so I'll shift gears unless you want me to bring up the copy and read from that since you don't have it. All right, so let me shift gears to curriculum. So summer school preparation, you have the flyer that was sent out or shared, and you heard what the numbers are currently. And yeah, planning is moving forward. Probably more conversations happening, like Wayne said today at the department chairs meeting. Elementary, more conversations will happen there now that we have some numbers and to find out what Spencer's numbers might be looking like, so we know how many teachers we need. And then the other part on this report, the curriculum review cycle. First, Kate, thank you. February 10th, you sat in on the webinar. I appreciate you watching that and also the conversation that we had following. A couple of takeaways. One, which isn't in my report, as we move into strategic planning process and looking at this curriculum review cycle, the question will come up, coming back to the webinar we watched, the school board's role in curriculum adoption. So we can share more information on that then. And tomorrow, the plan right now is that we will present this idea that the Albany City School District presented during the webinar of the curriculum review cycle. We'll share that tomorrow with the faculty. So I'll keep you posted and we can talk more in April about that.
Great, thank you. And Matt.
So Ben has stepped up and taken on computer-based testing coordination. So that is one less thing that Kim is responsible for. And he's doing a great job. He is very organized and very conscientious. He's so worried that he's going to miss something that I worry about him just like being so worried about being worried. It's funny. We laugh about it, but he is doing a great job. It's a lot to learn, but it's very organized. He is very organized, so he's doing a great job. And the test dates are there. It is different to go back and think, okay, we have to go back 2 years to when we were, doing computer-based testing for the last time for real. And this is the first year we're going to be doing all computer-based testing for both ELA and math for all grade levels. So we were on a cycle to gradually have all students in all the 3 through 8 grades do computer-based testing. And when we went to out for COVID, that would have been the year that we would have brought in the 8th graders for math. So we were sort of slowly, bringing everybody on board and getting everybody ready for it. So, I think that everybody is ready. They've been practicing with the samplers. I'm going to be going into class. I was in classes this week with some teachers, be in classes with them next week. But again, we try to not just focus on taking the test on a computer. It's about doing ELA, practicing the work in ELA and decoding the text and answering the questions and using the technology because they've been using it. Other than the 3rd graders, everybody else has done some version of computer-based testing, so it's not totally new to them. So it's not so much about how to use the technology, but how to answer the questions. So we try to let them focus on ELA and math and not just the computers. The technology plan, I just finished it today and sent it to Matt O'Donnell at TST BOCES, who will review it for us and give us some feedback. He has been helping to coordinate in the region the technology plans, and so he should have some good feedback for what other districts are doing with their tech plans. It'll go to the RIC at the end of the month. So we've got a couple of weeks to make any final changes, but I appreciate feedback that we've gotten. We got feedback from one parent, which was really useful feedback about expanding making sure that we talk about ethics and digital citizenship. And that is in the computer science and digital fluency standards. So in my mind, it was there, but it wasn't sort of explicitly laid out that it was in our tech plan. So it was helpful to have sort of a fresh set of eyes on that. So appreciate everybody all the teachers, administrators, and community members that did contribute to that. Cybersecurity, Mike and I have been meeting. We meet every week, a couple times a week, usually on anything that's coming up. But really, after looking at what has happened in some other districts in terms of audits from the comptroller, in terms of their security plans, and I just make sure that I kind of look to see what they kind of got dinged on, and make sure that we're trying to not get in on that if we get an audit, right? So a lot of those things are things that we're doing but aren't written down. And that's a lot of times where you get tripped up or they find something wrong is you don't document. And we tend in technology to solve problems and move on because there's more problems to solve and not necessarily document everything perfectly. So that's one of the things that I've been working on when I have time to develop those procedures that we have and have them documented and make sure that, you know, we have those things lined up. So that's one of the things that I've been working on this year with the cybersecurity incident response and internet, like passwords and email account, you know, like creation and deletion, you know, those sort of mundane things that are interesting to me. So.
Fair enough. Thank goodness. Someone's keeping us.
Okay, quick question here.
Yeah.
I know Mike is really, about a lot of this stuff, and that's why I'm using Linux and keep it away.
Mm-hmm.
The lessons learned from the other schools that haven't been as lucky or prepared as we have. Is that shared through O'Donnell and CSD?
Yeah, so we meet once a month. The tech directors in the region meet once a month, either mostly virtually, but starting to slowly get back in person and share those experiences with the audits, and then just anything that happens, why we're set up a certain way. Many schools use something called a domain name server, where all the users are in one computer and all of their privileges are there. And that is the first place that hackers tend to go to try and get in, because if they can get into that, then they have everybody's accounts. And one of the things that Mike did originally when he designed our system was to stay away from that. And so we have local users on our machines and static IP addresses. And so, yes, we sort of share those experiences and pick up things.
Thanks.
Miss Holly.
All right. So I started out with the fun stuff with fuel prices. I just thought it was interesting to look at it from July till now. And I didn't, after 3.9 at 122, I did not continue going, but it's just interesting to see how it jumped. And then the diesel is huge because that's what our buses run on. So, and obviously everybody else is feeling it too. Everybody. So, but running the reds, I told you, I think last month that our first person was ticketed, and that person pleaded guilty and had a nice little fine. So hopefully we can keep that going. Those cameras are awesome, and they're perfect. They're clear, and you can zoom right in and get that license plate. So we have that. Although, knock on wood, it's been quiet in that realm lately. So hopefully we keep that in the last month, anyways. Katie and I tomorrow we'll have the final piece of the 19A training. So we'll be done with that after tomorrow. So that'll be nice. And then last week, which I know there was a lot of people without power, but that was not fun. The last, what was it, Monday, Tuesday, I don't even know what days it was now. I think it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We ended up running buses down because we couldn't use the fuel pumps. So we're running buses down to Scottsmith and send the fuel up to get back so they could take their next run out. That was a good time. Yeah. Anyways, we're looking at a generator now for up at the bus garage because we don't have one up there. So that'll be nice to get in place. But I understand a company came up today and was looking at it, and they're a year out after you place so it'll be a while before we have a generator up there.
Try to get as many quotes as you can, because there may be, that's a huge generator, so people probably don't have them lying around.
Right.
But after the meeting of we went through, and they actually try to order, like if they use one, they order another so that they always have like 3.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Jim Winterby was one that was in charge of it, also would pass on the information to him.
That'd be great. My husband, I can't remember who, but
okay.
Hopefully it'll be helpful. But yeah, any of those parts are so mean, it's like cars and things, so yeah,
Right.
or buses.
There's something that we have an electrician coming up tomorrow because something wasn't fully hooked up. Lights keep dimming on us since last week. But Rob got the bus wash going the other day. Something was off with it and he couldn't figure it out. So we ended up calling the company. The company walked him through it, got it all set up. So he ran his car through just to make sure everything was good. And all the lights, the bus wash shut down and all the lights in the building went like down to nothing. We were like, that's not good. So quick, shut it off. And we got an electrician coming up tomorrow to figure that out. So we're getting there.
And that's since the power outage?
Yeah. Yeah, something's going on.
Was
It's
there
just
any,
not running at full, something's missing.
yeah,
I don't know enough about it, but something's missing.
was there any thought to use one of the buses to run the fuel pump for the other buses?
There were a lot of thoughts.
If you could jerry-rig that, but you could have siphoned it, Mike.
I
It would have been
could have
fun.
talked about it. I could have cited it. And I won't go in.
And we have Mike Williams' report. Plugging along as ever, keeping us safe, as we just talked about. And Brent.
Okay, actually, even before I start my report, I owe a couple of sincere apologies to the board and to my team. The first one has to do with most directly to Kim. Everybody got their reports into me and on time. I went through it. I must have saw Kim Newt's name twice, and so we'll get that to you, but that's on me. Did my job, but not well. The second thing I need to apologize to the board and everybody here. So from a previous board meeting, I forget which one it was, that the team put together a hiring practice, not policy, but just a practice. So when we hire new people, it's going to be 2 steps. So they'll do it at the building and department level, and then it comes to the district level. So, because of the shifts that we just made in the consent agenda, we needed secretaries for Kim and Wayne and another clerical person in Kitty's building. Additionally, we have 2 teacher aides that needed to be hired. They got all their interviews in, and I couldn't schedule it on time to get it to this board meeting. So it was on Monday. We'll finish it, but I thought it was better to stick with the practice that we all agreed upon than to try to rush it and maybe get a candidate that wasn't thoroughly vetted. So my second apology is we'll finish that Monday, but then it will be next month. I'll ask you to approve them kind of retroactively so they can start on time and not be short-handed for another month. So that's on me. But let's move on to what I have gotten done. Well, actually not done, started. So I wanted to get a insurance reserve. I did meet with, get her name right, Amanda Holzer, and she is the legislative director for our state senator, Fred Exshaw. She was wonderful. And they are more than happy to help. They're willing to write the legislation because for any school district to have an insurance reserve, it requires legislative action. There has to be a bill, has to be voted on and approved. So they'll help us out with that. And I also called your association, the New York State School Boards Association, and they got me in touch with John Daly, who's their governmental relationship coordinator, who's on my team, and they also said they'll help. So I have no concern about that getting through the next legislative session, and then for next year we'll be able to have that reserve. I'm happy about that. I still am happy about where we are with the budgeting process. As you all know, the budget committee just met, and we're making progress towards closing the gap we have, and I'm sure we'll have a solid budget and ready for your approval on time. And then tomorrow's superintendent's conference day. We're going to have that conversation with all of our staff so that they can have a voice in how this budget is completed, now that it's started. We also, I'm really happy to say we have the New York State Teacher of the Year, Carly Santangelo, coming to kick it off. She's from Cuba Rushford, and she's an agricultural teacher. I want to start by saying I really appreciate how brave she is to accept that honor. It's an honor that they give every year, and like any other profession, profession. Teacher and education isn't immune to professional jealousy. And when someone's recognized as a teacher of the year, well, that's a great thing to do because people want to say, what makes you so good? She does it because we need to shine a positive light on our profession. And she understands that, and we all understand that. All of our teachers are teachers of the year to some students and some parents. They're great. But if you just say that all the time without holding up an example, it doesn't get the message out. So she's doing that, and part of that role is to talk at other schools and say, hey, here's what worked for us and me, and we can learn from that. And again, we have a faculty and staff that would be open to that. And I'm really very excited that she's an agricultural teacher. And we were talking about maybe being able to offer an agricultural program. And then beyond that, I did tell the board that we would start the strategic planning process by March. And I was a little behind on that, but we're ready to go tomorrow. And I'm hoping my board members on that committee will be able to make the morning session. And then we'll go from there. So,
Excellent.
that's it. So thank you. And honestly, I want to go back to my little thing. I'm not doing a great job. I'm doing really okay, but from cat to Matt.
Oh, right, you gotta get that in there.
They are. If you cat to Matt, I'm holding them back a little bit. But they're good. And that's me keep up.
So I was gonna say, if Matt moves, then it's
From
gonna
Cat to Wayne.
Wayne.
Doesn't have a saying.
Any board comments?
A lot of good work being done, thank you all. I know it's very difficult, and we all appreciate it. All very really well. Well, we don't know how hard, but we see some of it.
Okay. Someone else want to make a motion to move back into?
You have to ask.
We do have to
Oh, I'm sorry.
recognize this. Is there anything you'd like to say?
No, thank you.
She has to sing.
Oh, like the requested song?
I thought if you don't say anything, you have to sing. Is that right?
I don't think that's a rule.
Must have been another group.
Yeah, thank you all for your continued hard work. Really, there's a
No,
lot of short staffing and a lot of moving pieces. You guys are killing it. Thank you. And 7:55, we are adjourned. We do need another executive session.
When I look